This is an extract from the Leader Coronavirus Daily podcast by the Evening Standard and hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for it on your podcast provider.
The National Gallery's director, Gabriele Finaldi, has waited 111 long days to reopen the doors to our gallery. He says it's a big moment, not just for him, but for the recovery of the nation. When the doors finally open on July 8, visitors can expect the same amazing artworks, but a very different viewing experience. Arts editor Nancy Durrant spoke with Mr. Finaldi for a piece in today's Evening Standard. She joins me now. Nancy, what will we see inside the National Gallery next week?
It's going to be a bit different. They are going to be functioning with a reduced capacity. So it'll be about sort of a fifth to a quarter of the number of people who you would normally expect to go through the doors. It'll be largely a local audience because obviously nobody can get here and everybody's scared to get on a plane, which is fair enough. And there'll be you'll have to wear a mask and all that, or at least you'll be encouraged to wear a mask. And there'll be a one-way system. So there are 3 routes that they have sort of plotted out through the gallery, and they all pass like several masterpieces. So, nobody's going to miss out on anything depending on what they choose. So the first one, you've got stuff like the Wilton Diptych, you've got Botticelli, Michelangelo, Leonardo, Raphael, all the kind of warring Italians, and then a bit of Van Eyck, which would be lovely. The second one, bit of Rubens, Rembrandt, you've Vermeers, you've Velázquez, Caravaggio, Artemisia. That Artemisia exhibition, by the way, that was planned for now, is definitely happening, but it will happen later in the year and they'll be announcing that date fairly soon. And the last one, your Holbein, your Hogarth, your Gainsborough, and those 2 B and C routes, you get your Turners, your Monets, your Seurat and your Van Gogh, because they are, those are the ones everybody wants to see, all that 19th century gorgeousness. So you will be able to go kind of slowly and look at stuff at your leisure, but there might be a time if you're, standing in front of a Crivelli for 15 minutes, someone will be like, we do have a capacity here, would you mind moving on to the next room, that kind of thing. It's going to be quite weird, I think, but they've put in new, better filtration systems for the air and, perspex at all the ticket desks and all that kind of thing, and the cafe will only be takeaway, that sort of stuff, but you can still buy all the bits and pieces in your postcards and all those kind of things in the shop.
You spoke with Gabriele Finaldi. What are the big challenges they're facing in opening up, and do they see that there'll be any long-term impacts? Yes,
there are some serious challenges and long-term impacts, not least of which is money. I mean, they're not getting any money, not at the moment. They need a government bailout. Everybody's hoping that Oliver Dowden's going to, make good on his promise to sort it all out. But so far that money has not been forthcoming. The main problem with that is that, so there are various issues, but for starters, 65% or so of the National Gallery's audience comes from overseas. That's gone. 50% roughly of their income comes from commercial sources, so ticket sales for major exhibitions, the shop, the cafe, events like hiring of the gallery, which was really, really growing over the last few years. Lots of corporate events. I mean, you can even get married at the National Gallery, which I think is really cool. God knows how much it costs. So all of that, of course, is completely gone. It's not just going to be that 2020 is going to be a tough year. Looking down the line, according to Finaldi, looking at the finances, he thinks that 2022 is going to be the really tough one because they simply have no idea where they stand or what's going to happen. They can't plan. This year the exhibitions were planned out, but this is about the time when you'd be kind of finalising your exhibitions for 2022 in a gallery like the National, and they simply have no idea what they're going to be able to do. So that is going to be really complicated, I think.
Even just the logistics of getting the art to the gallery, I mean, they must have no idea how that will work.
Well, exactly. At the moment, one of the reasons why the Artemisia can't happen right away and couldn't couldn't happen when we were sort of going into lockdown was that they literally just couldn't get the paintings out of Italy.
You asked him this question, which I thought was really nice. Are there any positives to have come out of all this?
There are some positives, and one of those positives, and I think all of the galleries in London and possibly across the UK would say this, and that is that they have been talking to each other in a way that they have never done before. You know, there's so much more conversation, so much more communication, so much more collaboration. Also, for somewhere like the National, as I said, 65% of its audience has been from overseas, which is great, and we want them to come back. My goodness, we want them to come back. But this is an opportunity, hopefully a brief one, but it is an opportunity to kind of reconnect with that local audience and to remind them that this is their gallery, this is their artworks, these are the things that they own, and like why that is a wonderful thing. And, you know, he said in the interview, and I think he's sort of right, I mean, it's a bit soppy, but I think art is kind of fundamental to sort of, you know, our existence as humans, and actually it can be quite healing, just being able to stand in front of something that is basically just beautiful and extraordinary and that you couldn't do, you know, is kind of uplifting.
Search for the Leader Coronavirus Daily on any podcast provider to hear more from the podcast.